The ideas that I am talking about are ideas that are widely supported. Everything that I talk about, raising the minimum wage, health care for all, a tax system which demands the billionaires pay their fair share, those are all popular ideas, but people didn't know. You got to run for president and have 20,000 people come out to your rallies and win 23 states. And they say, well, maybe those ideas are not so crazy after all, and we got to entertain them. The establishment doesn't like that. They really don't. They want to tell you, and this is their main, this is how they succeed. What they say, Lex, is the world is the way it is. It always will be this way. We got the wealth. We got the power. And don't think of anything else. This is the way it is. You have no power. Give up. That they don't say it quite that way, but that's really what the intent is. And what we showed is, guess.
For all my progressives out there, I want to make sure I always bring up that Barack Obama being president for 8 years is what gave enough of, room for Bernie Sanders' movement to even happen, because Democrats got more comfortable. They knew Obama wasn't going far enough, so Bernie Sanders could grow off of what Obama was already doing. If Donald Trump wins, or if a Republican wins, then all the attention in politics will be removing that person from office. So leftism and progressivism does grow better when there is an Obama or another liberal or centrist in office. I know all you leftists, if you're not a liberal, you might think differently. But yeah, having Kamala Harris would lead to a more left-wing movement than Donald Trump would, and that would happen every time.
Guess what? Running an outside campaign, we took on the Democratic establishment. We came close to winning it, and we did win 23 states. And the ideas that we're talking about are the ideas that working class people, young people believe in.
The following is a conversation with Bernie Sanders, senator from Vermont and two-time presidential candidate, both times as the underdog who, against the long odds, captivated the support and excitement of millions of people, both on the left and the right. This is the Lex Fridman podcast. To support it, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Bernie Sanders.
Lex is really annoying. I saw he put a tweet up today basically saying that, all of the liberals think Trump's a fascist, and all the fascists and conservatives think that Kamala is a communist. Haha, because he plays both sides and the enlightened centrist and everything. And it's like, bro, Kamala's not a communist, Lex, at all. Her economic positions are center right. But Trump is a fascist, okay?
Growing up, did you ever think you'd be a politician?
One person of doing things.
Not in a million years.
It's okay.
Yeah, I know that you hate talking about yourself, which is rare for a politician, I would say. What's your philosophy behind that? You like talking about the issues.
Yeah,
talking
I do.
About...
I mean, everybody talks about themselves. It's not about me. Nice guy, not a nice guy. What politics should be about is the issues facing the people of our country, the people of the world, and how we're going to address it. That's what it should be.
That said, there's interesting aspects to your life story. For example, in 1963, you were very active in the civil rights movement, got arrested even for protesting segregation in Chicago. And you attended the famous March on Washington, where MLK gave his I Have a Dream speech. What was that like?
It's extraordinary. I took a bus ride down with fellow students from the University of Chicago, and it was a zillion people there. I'm not sure if it was the first time I'd ever been in Washington in my life. But it was, it was a very impressive moment. And what he was talking about, what people very often forget about that, it was not only...
This is one reason I think you need to respect, and hello, Egghead in chat. This is one reason I think you need to respect Bernie Sanders, regardless of your political affiliation, whether you're centrist or liberal or progressive or socialist, whatever. The idea and the foundational belief that we should be serving other people as the number one goal, I think it's pretty good to have that as a moral foundation, especially because most people don't go too deep in the morals. And we look at Christianity, and many religious people in the United States are very worried about their own salvation, not necessarily how they can help others just have a better life on earth. But yeah, I think Bernie's overall philosophy, and he's shown this, he has not said vote Jill Stein. He has not protested. He lost in 2016, which I don't think was a completely fair primary, not from anything nefarious, but the media representation of that. Obviously, Hillary Clinton wanted to be, just win that uncontested. She was mad about that. Many people were. But he lost, and right away campaigned for Hillary harder than anyone. He campaigned in 2020 for Biden harder than anyone. You can argue that he campaigns harder for Biden now than any other member of Congress or Senate, because he's been able to influence actual political power, which is something that socialists and like Jill Stein would never be able to even fathom doing. And that's why they hate Bernie Sanders and AOC now, because they're really they don't care about pragmatism. It's amazing.
Only racial justice, it was jobs. Jobs and Justice. That was the name of that rally. And so it's
Yeah, exactly. Bernie Sanders, he says, I don't agree with capitalism and the current system. And we might say, like, we're never going to move past that. It's okay to have aspirations like that, though, as long as you're going to perform as, you know, to your best capability in whatever system you're in. Whatever system you're in, you should be doing things that are pro other people and pro human and more, you know, secular values in general. Have a good night, Spencer. Thank you for dropping a like.
something I've never forgotten.
Just hanging
What
out.
influence did he have on you? What did you learn about the way he enacted change in the world?
King was a very impressive guy. More impressive, I think, than people think that he was. And what he did is he created his movement from the bottom on up. So was he developed real organization, grassroots organization, which put pressure on communities and officials to end segregation, to open up voting patterns. And I think what has to also be remembered about King, which is really quite extraordinary, is, you know, he won the Nobel Peace Prize and there was, oh, you're great, you're wonderful. But then to the end of his life, he took on Lyndon Johnson on the war in Vietnam. And as soon as he did that, suddenly the editorial pages throughout America, establishment papers, no longer thought he was so great. In fact, the message sent out, you're black, deal with civil rights, don't worry about foreign policy, we'll take care of that. But he said, you know, if I talk about peace and nonviolence, I can't sit back and allow what's going on in Vietnam to continue without speaking out. Incredible courage to do that. And by the way, when he was assassinated at a fighting for the rights of AFSCME workers, garbage, guys who delivered the garbage, who were treated terribly, low wages, bad working conditions, and who went out to support their right to form a union. That's when he got killed.
So on the war front,
And also with MLK and the civil rights movement, some important historical context that many people leave out. There was a lot of pragmatism and compromise when it came to getting the Civil Rights Act passed. So a lot of the activism MLK did was after getting those political wins and getting those substantial gains on human rights. So when MLK was going harder on Vietnam and other issues like unions that were, you know, past race after the Civil Rights Act, there's the conversation about how John Lewis was going to go and have a fiery speech at the March on Washington or another event, but the civil rights leaders got him and said, hey, we don't want to go hard against this administration because we need to cut a deal with this current administration in order to get the Civil Rights Act passed. So much of that movement in the 60s was very focused on pragmatism and using public angst and protests in a way that's very effective. And again, I don't think many of the current organizers for certain issues are paying attention to that model very much because they think ruthless organizing and just always yelling at the powerful is what works. But you need to actually do some politics and understand how political power works as well. Political power is a real thing. And influence.
one of the things
course.
that people don't often talk about your work in politics. You gave
What's up, Jay? You haven't watched a Jolah stream in ages. Well, welcome. You are one of 3 people watching.
I think is
Congratulations.
a truly brave speech on the Iraq War in 2002, I believe. You voted no on the Iraq Resolution. You voted no on the Patriot Act. And you basically predicted very accurately what would happen if we go into Iraq. What was your thinking at the time behind those speeches, behind voting no on the Patriot Act, on the Iraq Resolution?
It maybe ironically came out of maybe the war in Vietnam and the ease and lies that people told. We went into Vietnam under a lie. We lost close to 60,000 Americans, millions of people in Vietnam, Cambodia died as a result of that. So you think twice about it. And in the war in Iraq, you had, you know.
Well, yeah, Egghead, just yelling is meaningless. But if you have that energy and power and organization, you need to have actual leaders of these movements who understand what they're doing. And I think Bernie did that pretty effectively with how he was able to influence the Biden admin's policy. You could see Bernie Sanders everywhere, scattered all throughout the different bills that passed. But yeah, it's all about, you know, you have people yelling, how are we actually going to focus this in a concentrated direction? But when these activist groups are all sprawled out and not doing any coalitions for actual political power, then they look like what you have in the Green Party, where they just never get political power. They're just there to be angry and yell, and they don't care about actual, like, anything, really.
You know, people like Dick Cheney.
And I interacted with a Jill Stein voter the other day, and they first off made a joke about voter intimidation, that they were going to go to a polling site with a weapon. So that was awesome. They said how evil everyone is, and they said they're not voting multiple times. I was not engaging, by the way. They just kept saying how they're voting Jill Stein. Then they walked away and just started like yelling at people. It was an interesting engagement.
And others telling us, oh, they have nuclear weapons and all that stuff. It's the only way we can resolve the issue. I didn't believe it. I didn't agree with it. And you're right. Turns out historically, I was right.
What's the way to fight this thing that...
Well, yeah, you saw once Bernie Sanders wasn't a presidential candidate anymore. I think like 10% of his strongest supporters went MAGA, including like a Tulsi Gabbard. So when you have, that's my biggest concern with populism, is it's destabilizing, it's focused on anger, and once you lose that person who is leading the movement, like all the Bernie bros, they go very bad directions. Like Jimmy Dore, Matt Taibbi, all these people were super hard Bernie progressives, and now they are literally fascists adjacent.
Martin Luther King tried to fight, which is the military-industrial complex.
It's huge. I mean, it gets to the broader issue of where we are as a nation. And what I, almost uniquely in Congress talk about is the fact that we are moving, Lex, to an oligarchic form of society. And not a lot of people are familiar with that term, but what it means, we talk about oligarchy in Russia. Putin is surrounded by...
I'd probably say we're closer to like neo-feudalism. I like that term. Oligarch society. I don't know. I think, I feel like... I forget why I liked neo-feudalism to describe what we're going through right now, but I feel like it's more correct in a way.
By the oligarchs. Well, guess what? What do you think is happening in the United States? So what you have right now is an economy with more concentration of ownership than we've ever had. All right, that means whether it's agriculture, transportation, healthcare, whatever it may be, fewer and fewer massively large corporations control what's produced and the prices we pay. And then you look at our political system, and we don't talk about it. What is the reality of the political system today? And that is that billionaires are spending huge amounts of money to buy this election. In Trump's campaign, you got three multi-billionaires spending over $200 million.
It's not even just that. And the reason I said like neo-feudalism and comparing it to that model. So like Elon Musk right now, he owns the internet company Starlink with the satellite internet, Tesla cars. He owns Twitter, which is social media, all this stuff. And reports came out tonight how he has been coordinating with Russia directly. So when Starlink is providing services for Ukraine and Russia, there's been some key points where Starlink went out at interesting points in the conflict, and Starlink was provided to Russia, and their services were working. And also, there's some evidence that as a favor to China, Putin communicated to Musk to not put Starlink in Taiwan, I'm pretty sure. So we have Elon Musk trying to spend all of his money and influence in the U.S. to elect Donald Trump on behalf of Russia and controlling critical infrastructure. He has government contracts, important person protection, whatever that's called. And this person is worth the most money in the world. And we have no levers to hold him accountable. That'll be really scary if Trump wins. That might be my scariest thing so far for why Kamala needs to win, is Elon Musk alone.
People. Democrats have their billionaires not quite as concentrated. But at the end of the day, billionaires play an enormous role in terms of electing politicians and in Washington in determining what legislation gets seen and not seen.
But it's not just single billionaires, it's companies with lobbyists.
You got it. Let me give you one example. Lobbyists. We pay in the United States by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. This is an issue I've been working hard on with some success. Take a wild and crazy guess. How many lobbyists are there from the drug companies in Washington, D.C.?
Well, over 1,000.
Over 1,000, right? There are 100 members of the Senate, 435 members of the House, 535 members of Congress. There are 1,800 well-paid lobbyists representing the drug companies, including former leaders of the Republican and Democratic Party. That is why, one of the reasons why, we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Military-industrial complex. You got a revolving door. People go from the military into the General Dynamics, into Lockheed Martin and the other large companies.
The revolving door is a big concern for me. So that's essentially, so this happened with the pharmaceutical industry and the opioid pandemic, or not pandemic, the opioid epidemic. So in the early 2000s, late 1990s, many of the FDA officials that gave really strong approval for opioids, which was like OxyContin, which was a different formulation of opioids that were already banned, but this time they released it, and it was supposed to be like long releasing, so it was less addictive. The same FDA officials that unleashed these opioids that caused the opioid crisis worked on Purdue Pharma's board literally a year or two later. So the fact you can go from public to private industry and back and forth does not sit well with me. And I feel like there should be more of a gap. So maybe like a 3-year ban, a 3-year cooldown. You can't go directly from working for the government to the private industry, especially when that private industry correlates with exactly what you're regulating. I really don't like the revolving door.
And what we see there is an institution in the Pentagon. We spend $1 trillion a year on the Pentagon. It is the only federal agency that is not able to submit to an independent audit. So if you think there's not massive fraud and waste and cost overruns in the Pentagon, you would be sorely mistaken.
Do you think most politicians are corrupt in accepting the money, or is the system corrupt, or is it a bit of both?
If the corrupt means that, hey, here's $10,000, vote this way, doesn't work like that. Very, very rare. Occasionally, very, very rare. That's corruption. What happens is that if you are in a campaign, and right now the amount of money that people have to raise, you're running for Senate in Ohio, you're talking about $50, $60 million. Where the hell are you going to get that money? It's not going to be $10 donations. You're going to be surrounding yourself with people who have the money. You're going to go $5,000 plate dinners, etc. So you surround yourself with those people who say, oh, these are my problems. This is what I need. I need a tax break for billionaires, blah, 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 blah. So you live in that world. They are your financial support. They are, in a sense, your political base. So you're very cognizant of what...
Yeah, true. But there's also a huge pipeline of workers that go to DC with the intent of using a government job to get private contacts. And then they are in public life they're a public servant for maybe a year. And then they get a job with a big defense contractor or another company that works directly with this. And my big thing is, I want people involved in public life. And we should be paying better, by the way, paying higher numbers for these jobs that are in public so it can compete with private more. But yeah, I want, if you're a public servant, I want you to want to be a public servant. There are many people who would do that job for low pay that are being pushed out. And this is about generations and generations of money. And I've heard many pundits, including like a Destiny of, someone that you would probably know, saying that money in politics isn't that big of an issue. It is a big issue, not in the sense of billionaires walking in and handing people money, but in a sense of there's a 50-year structure built up, maybe 25-year, 20-year, whatever, where the same family names and the same companies are getting money from the same locations. And that reinforces beliefs and media bubbles and power bubbles, and all these dimensions are reinforced through 20 to 25 years. So that's why money in politics is an issue, and why proper reporting is always going to be an issue, and unrestricted donations are an issue. And we're seeing that with Elon Musk right now, not only because, like, okay, there's a policy that's not popular that's not passing, or there's a popular policy that's not passing because of money, but because there's so much potential in this current system for someone like Elon Musk to just come in and cause so much damage in general, even if we can't tie it back to a certain policy, where there's so many weaknesses in the system today that we take for granted. We don't even think about it as a money issue in politics, but the standard for how these things operate, with especially the media's relationship to these families, and the private dinners they go to in Chicago and New York, and these rooftop bars, some of which I have seen and some of which I have been at, by the way. This culture is built up over time where things are not about public service, and I think that is a big problem. Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna be as straight out bad as the Elon Musk thing, but it is also when Elon Musk holds government contracts for like 5 crucial industries, you know what I mean, and tons of them, and he has more wealth than some of the policies we pass federally in his total wealth, and he's able to just have all this money liquid to donate to campaigns, and also he could leverage loans in crazy ways. And yeah, but it's not the way Bernie talks about it. Kind of starts your like anger, but there's not a finisher. How do you translate this into real policy and address this culture? Because obviously Americans are not currently equipped to deal with these issues by voting. So we do need people who are like genuine public servants to hopefully, this is the issue. People that want to fix these structures and programs, they're not going to be invited to the dinner party. If I ever get into politics, I need to make my decision. Am I going to go to the dinner party and play nice with everyone and be involved in this culture? Or am I going to be an outsider like a Bernie did, and have a really and have a struggle? And Bernie's only been able to do this. He's only been able to do this because he's found this state in Vermont, which is like the perfect location to just have a seat. And maybe I'll move to like Rhode Island. Maybe Rhode Island is a good option. You just go to Rhode Island. You have to get like 200,000 votes or something to be a senator, and then you get to be a U.S. senator in the same way that someone is from California, and the California senator probably gets like 5 times as many votes, maybe like 500 times as many votes.
What you do in terms of not upsetting them. So it's not corruption in the sense of people, taking envelopes with, huge amounts of money to vote a certain way. That very, very rarely, if ever, happens. It is the power of big money to make politicians dependent on those folks. And that's why, when I ran for president, what I'm probably maybe most proud of is the fact that we received millions and millions of campaign contributions, averaging $27 a piece, I think, in 2016.
Have companies, lobbyists ever tried to buy you, try to influence you?
We don't welcome them into our office. I do deal with these guys, but it's usually on a confrontational tone. No, so they don't come into my office very often telling me their problems.
So how do we fix the system? How do we get money out of politics?
This is not, like many other issues, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. It exists in other countries. If you go to, every country has their own election system, but nobody has a system where billionaires can spend unlimited sums of money through super PACs to elect the candidates of their choice. So first thing you got to do, one of the things, Lex, I found that
by the way, before Bernie Sanders talks about his solutions, so like unions have lobbyists, healthcare groups have lobbyists, PACs have lobbyists. For example, if you have a school shooting and like the Sandy Hook, I forget what the foundation's called, but the foundation after the Sandy Hook shooting, they technically have like lobbyists. But if you're a nonprofit, they're not called lobbyists. But that's partly necessary to combat like the NRA lobbyists. So not all lobbyists are bad, but it is important to have that person to communicate these issues to Congress people, on behalf of like companies and organizations and communities. But the regulations around lobbying is what needs to be cleaned up.
The more important the issue, the less discussion there is. The less important the issue, the more discussion there is. A number of years ago, the United States Supreme Court, in one of its more pathetic decisions, passed the Citizens United decision. And what Citizens United decision said is, you're a multi-billionaire. You want the freedom. You're a free person in a free country. You want the freedom to buy the government. And how terrible it would be to deny you the freedom to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a campaign to elect the candidates. And they said that's your freedom, and that's what Citizens United is about. We've got to end that. In my view, we move to public funding of elections. That means you want to run for governor, you want to run for Senate, show that you have some support. Get $5 contributions from X number of people to show you're not a flake. You have some support, and government will pay a certain amount more, and there will be a limit on the amount of money that can be spent. So it'll be you can run against.
My issue with like a Citizens United and the entire structure of just like PACs and super PACs in general, especially with different reporting rules. My big thing is, if you're Amazon or you're Walmart and you want a policy passed and you have tons of money, you're Elon Musk, you have billions of dollars. Instead of making a PAC called America PAC or Progress PAC or whatever, and using that to push for whatever your key political issue is, why not just have that company own it and actually do advertisements explaining to the public why they are supporting this policy and trying to sway public opinion that way, instead of donating it to different channels and making it seem like a more legitimate political operation. I would rather know that Amazon is the one, and these are the exact companies that want this policy for this reason, and make them, have to make an argument. And that's not directly correlated to Citizens United, but like I said, with the super PAC structure, being able to have like almost shell propaganda they're kind of like shell propaganda companies almost. And you can spend unlimited amounts of money. It's really interesting.
It's me, and I'm not going to outspend you 10 to 1. That's what we should be moving toward, in my view.
How do we make that happen when there's so much money?
Yeah, and then they can make it seem like, oh, my company is nonpartisan. I'm McDonald's, okay? I'm nonpartisan. McDonald's does not make any political statements. So McDonald's does not need to own the fact they've donated millions and millions and millions of dollars to different political campaigns to keep the minimum wage low. They don't need to own that. They could just do it through back channels. I'd rather McDonald's have to say, like, yeah, we are McDonald's, we are partisan, we are doing this because we want this policy passed. I feel like that'd be a more fair, and then people can actually, this is a capitalist free market thing, then people can vote with their dollars in a way, right? They can vote with their dollars. I hear that a lot with Adam Smith, the free market economics, like vote with your dollar, support corporations that you like. That would allow people to do that a little bit.
In the system and the politicians owe to the people who paid for their election? Does it have to come from the very top, essentially, sort of a really strong, populist president?
But you're right. You raised exactly the question. If I am getting a huge amount of money from billionaires, do you think I'm going to go out and announce, I think billionaires should not be involved in buying elections? I doubt that very much. So what you're going to need, and you tell me if I'm missing something, but I pay attention, you don't hear either of the major candidates talking about that issue, do you?
I think what happens is when an individual politician speaks out about it, they get punished. But I think this is a popular idea. So if a lot of them speak out, that's why if it came from the top, if a president was using a very large platform to basically speak out, it provides a safety blanket for the other politicians to get it all out of the system. But there has to be kind of a mass movement
Yes,
of it.
it does. I mean, and every place I go, I always speak about the issue. And it always, people understand it. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're progressive, you're conservative. Who really believes that we are a democracy when billionaires can spend, tens and tens of millions of dollars to buy elections? So it is a very popular issue. It's important. You're right. We need political leaders to be speaking out on that. But we need a grassroots movement to say, when somebody is at a town meeting, you're running for the Senate, you're running for the House, what's your view on Citizens United? Are you prepared to vote to overturn that decision and move the public funding of elections? Extraordinarily important.
So many of your policy proposals are quite radical.
I feel like it'd be more effective just to focus on, like, for example, if a representative voted against the bipartisan infrastructure plan, but then they get money from it for their state, and they brag about the money they got for their state after they voted against that plan. I feel like focusing on issues like that expose that hypocrisy more, because I don't know if, like, it's more actionable. So throughout every race in America, you have Congress, U.S. Senate, then you have state house, a state Senate, like a General Assembly. You have state governors, then you have like county commissioners and everything. But like some of these policies we can focus on at a county level without needing to get into meta discussions about money and politics in general. Because then a politician can just say like, oh, I don't take any big donors, and then just get like Donald Trump and then self-fund his campaign and get points for it. And when you self-fund your campaign, you can pay yourself back with donations you get. So it's really, I'd rather you just focus on exact policies and hypocrisies within politicians, and that should be self-defining to the issue about like money and politics or whatever.
No, they're not. I beg to differ.
Okay, great.
Go through it.
Well, they're popular. So what I mean is relative to the way other politicians speak,
Yes. Okay.
it's usually a little bit more moderate. So from everything you've learned from politics, is it better to go sort of radical, maybe we can come up with a different word, versus a more moderate, safe, ambiguous kind of policies?
Okay, let's talk about it. Fair enough. We talked about one issue, very important, money in politics.
Money, yes.
Getting big money out of politics. Do you think that's a radical idea?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a popular idea. It's an idea that makes sense. But in order to implement it and actually make it happen, requires, to flip the system upside down, right? In that sense, it's radical.
In that sense, it's radical. But if you go to walk down the street here and you say, do you think billionaires should be able to spend as much money as they want to buy politicians? I would say 9 out of 10 people say, that's crazy. That's not what America's supposed to be about. So in that sense, it's certainly not radical. Let's talk about healthcare. Go out on the street, do it. We'll do a poll. I've done the polling. Is healthcare a human right? Should every American be able to go to a doctor when they need, regardless of their income? You know what people say? I would say about 85, 90% of the people say, of course. The idea that healthcare is a human right available to all exists, Lex, in every major country on earth except the United States. So you're here with me in Burlington, Vermont, right? If you got a car, go 50 miles north to Canada. Walk into Canada and ask.
I always agree with these points enough, because universal systems are very diverse and there are universal systems in many countries. But when Bernie talks about it and 85% support, whenever you get into the actual details, those numbers collapse. So like most people support like an arms embargo for Israel, or they support a whole number of policies like, oh, immigrants should be able to come in the right way. But when you have to deal with the reality and political reality of it, it's not as simple as like 85% of people agree with this, especially when they're so used to things working a certain way for a long time. And that's one thing that progressives in general forget, is that like or they just don't understand the polls they see that say 90% of people agree with them. And I include myself as a progressive. 90% of people do not agree that healthcare should be a human right in any way that I would talk about it, or any way that a progressive would talk about it. It just, and then, if you talk too confidently about it and you don't make an actual strategy for convincing people, if you think all the convincing has been done already and it's just money in politics, you're not really understanding how bad the American voter demographic is that is going to deny that and elect politicians who would say no to something like universal health care.
People,
The
when you go to
voters
the
are
hospital, how much does it cost you? Which kind of bill? And they say, what are you talking about? It doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't cost us a nickel. That's the case in virtually every country in Europe. So the idea that healthcare should be available to all, that there should be no out-of-pocket expense because it's a human right, is widespread around the world and very much agreed to in this country. Bottom line is that because of our corrupt political system, we have a healthcare system designed not to provide healthcare to all people, to make huge profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies. And that is what's happening. And we got to change that system. So I'm a strong advocate and I've led the effort on Medicare for all.
Okay, let's talk about Medicare for all. If you could snap your fingers today and implement the best possible healthcare system for the United States of America, what would that look like?
Well, we have a pretty good system, not great, but a pretty good system in Medicare. So it's there for the elderly. And Lyndon Johnson passed that in the 1960s, a huge step forward. It is being chopped away by the private insurance companies through Medicare Advantage. But if you strengthen Medicare and you do away with the kind of deductibles that seniors now have to pay, and you do away with other stuff, and you say basically right now you're a senior in America, you go to any doctor you want, when you're in the hospital, Medicare will pay the entire bill. If you expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and vision, which it doesn't now cover, you do all of those things. And then the next thing you do is say, okay, to be eligible for Medicare now, you have to be 65. First year, we're going to lower it to 55. Then we'll lower it to 45. Then we'll lower it to 35. Then we'll have everybody in the system. So I think in a 4 or 5 year period, you can strengthen Medicare and have everybody in the system. And when you do that, and this is not just me talking, a number of studies have pointed this out. When you take the profit motive out of it from the insurance companies and the drug companies, you can end up providing quality care to all people at no more than we're spending right now. Because right now, we are spending twice as much per person in healthcare as the people of any other nation. Incredibly wasteful system.
So the way to pay for the system is to increase taxes. But you're saying if you cut that cost and increase the taxes, you're saying it's going to
Here's the story.
out.
And I've gotten my share of 30-second ads attacking me on this. Bernie Sanders wants to raise your taxes on healthcare.
The worst poll was a majority of people saying they wanted no military intervention in Ukraine, and a majority of people saying they wanted the U.S. to make a no-fly zone over Ukraine in the same poll. Yeah, because people don't know what a no-fly zone actually entails. Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize that people answering the polls are not reading them correctly. They would probably need someone there to actually explain each of these policies and give them like an hour lesson on it, and they're still not going to understand it. So polls are inherently vibe-based. And then if you, let's say you go and poll only experts, so let's say anyone that has a master's level degree in this subject or higher, then that'd probably be a better poll when it comes to analyzing policy opinion among experts in the field. But when it comes to general American sentiment, yeah, it's very sketchy and shaky ground to just go off of an opinion poll that says, like, do you want good things or bad things? Do you want everyone to have healthcare? It's like, yeah, I want everyone to have healthcare. But the moment you say you're going to take away my private healthcare, I'm going to freak out and vote you out of office because I don't understand what any of this means. I love when Bernie talks about the transition to Medicare for all as just reducing the age slowly over time, because also reducing the Medicare age, let's say over a 15-year period or a 20-year period, whatever it might be, also gives the healthcare industry and nurses and doctors, it gives capacity a chance to expand, because you can't just give everyone really good healthcare right away. This will happen in Canada. There are super long lines. And I mean like actual long lines, like doctors going out of business. You need a gradual period for everything to adjust in that system. And you'll still have in a Medicare system when you expand it, in other plans, not Medicare for all, but you can still have Medicare Advantage, and then it would create a 2-tier system where everyone's guaranteed a base level of coverage. But if you make more money, you can still have privilege and have like a private option for healthcare, sort of like Australia's healthcare plan. I never got to talk about all these policies because no one watches videos about all of these policies, and it is pretty boring. But there are so many different ways to do universal healthcare, going off of just like that Medicare model and expanding Medicare. And there's so many easy adjustments we can make without overhauling the entire system that would not seem nearly as scary to voters.
It's true, in a progressive way. But right now, do you have health insurance?
Yes.
Okay. Somebody's paying for your health insurance. It depends. If you are working, most people get their health insurance through their jobs. Okay. So if you're working for a large company, your employer is paying your health insurance. And by the way, that comes out of your wages. Healthcare costs in America are very high, and your employer will tell you honestly, look, I can't give you more than a 3% wage increase because I got a 10% increase in your healthcare costs. You want that? Or if you're a union negotiating, you know what they'll say? Hey, you want decent wages? We're going to have to cut back on your healthcare. That's what every union has to deal with, every negotiating session. So we're paying for it through employers out of pocket. We pay through it through Medicare, Medicaid, Veterans Administration, etc. What I am proposing is really not radical. It's what exists in Canada and other countries. It is publicly funded, like the police departments and like libraries are, like public education. This is publicly funded in a progressive way. So right now, rather than paying out of your own pocket, if you are a family, let's just say you're self-employed
right now, a lot of the country seems okay with getting rid of the Department of Education. So
rather than paying out of your own pocket, if you are a family, let's just say you're self-employed right now, and you are, you have a couple of kids and a wife, it could cost you $15,000, $20,000 a year in insurance costs. Well, that's all eliminated. Will you have to pay more in taxes? Of course you will. Maybe it depends on your income level, but it could be that you'll be paying $12,000 more in taxes, but not $20,000 more in premiums, co-payments, and deductibles. You save money. So it's paying taxes rather than paying money to the insurance company. You got a better deal through the tax system.
So the most painful thing in today's system is the surprise bills, the number one cause of bankruptcy, and the psychological pain that comes from that, just worrying, stressed, in debt.
You got it.
And just basically afraid constantly of getting sick because you don't know if insurance is going to cover it. And if you're not insured, you don't know how much it's going to cost. So you're not going to go to the hospital, even if there's something wrong with you, if there's pain and all that. So you just live in a state of fear, psychological fear. That's the number one problem. It's just not just financial, psychological.
Look, and I think you said it very well. I'm chairman of the committee that deals with this stuff. So I talk to a lot of doctors. And doctors in Vermont and all over this country tell me that they are astounded. People walk into their offices much sicker than they should have been. And the doctor said, why didn't you come in here 6 months ago when you first, felt your symptoms? And they said, well, I have a high deductible. I have a $10,000 deductible. I don't have any money to pay. I'm uninsured. Some of those people don't make it. Other people, and this is what is totally crazy, they end up in the hospital at huge expense to the system rather than getting the care they need when they needed it. So that is how, I'll give you another example of it. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. 1 out of 4 Americans can't afford the drugs their doctors prescribe. So you walk into the doctor's office, they say, okay, Lex, you got this, that, and the other thing. Here's a prescription. You can't afford to fill it. What happens? You get sicker. You end up in the emergency room, which is an extremely expensive proposition. Okay. Or you end up in the hospital, rather than dealing with the problem when it occurs. And what is not talked about, I mentioned earlier how we don't talk about some of the major issues. The estimate is that some 60,000 people in America die every single year unnecessarily because they can't get to a doctor when they need because of financial reasons. And you want to hear even crazier. 1 out of 4 people who get cancer treatment in this country either go bankrupt or deplete their financial resources of their family. So your point is,
see, if Trump's in office, this is a really good point to really talk about how, all these people dying from healthcare, no one's going to care about these numbers, these quiet deaths where someone's dying from heart disease or cancer or something else they can't find, or maybe like a quality of life healthcare need that grows into something worse because they don't get it checked out. No one's gonna care about these concerns, because when Donald Trump's in office, then a couple, 500,000 more people will die from a pandemic, or thousands more people will die from mass deportation, or thousands more people will die when Trump pulls out of NATO. So the only way we're gonna have conversations about like healthcare policy is like self-actualization. You need to have other things, other needs taken care of first, which is why, again, Bernie Sanders and his movement came after Obama was president for 8 years. His movement cannot exist after Donald Trump, because inherently, if you have a far-right fascist or whatever, all the neocons and liberals and progressives, they're going to need to come together against Thanos. And no one's talking Medicare for all right now. No one cares. But guess what? Once Obama was done being president, we had a huge primary with like 15 candidates, maybe 20 candidates, and they all, except like 2, wanted Medicare for all. And one of the candidates that did not want Medicare for all is the one that won. So that was fun.
Is right. If somebody diagnoses you with cancer, you're scared to death. You're worried about how you're going to live. You're going to die. What's going to happen? And then on top of that, you got to worry about with your family.
Oh, yeah. Finding places to take in-network cost versus out-of-network, and plans that allow you to see any doctor cost a lot more. And many of these doctor offices, honestly, it depends where you are, but in like suburbs, the offices are pretty empty too. So it's kind of we're at we're at a really interesting place. We have a very key lack of supply in poor rural areas and poor urban areas, and we have a key oversupply in rich suburbs, which is one of the reasons the system doesn't change, because those rich suburban voters who enjoy huge houses and huge trucks and expensive cars, and they still complain about the economy, by the way, these voters who are making conspiracy theories and whatever benefit from this system so well, and they are also one of the most reliable voting demographics. And then older people are on Medicare already, which is another reliable voter demographic. And all the unreliable voter demographics are the ones that are suffering. And many of those people are silly, and they vote for someone like Donald Trump, who wants to take away their healthcare even more, which is super fun. I have really good insurance too. The websites are terrible. That is wild. Like finding the directory, like on Blue Shield. I've had Highmark. I've had Blue Shield. I've had United or whatever. Like I've had all of them, and all the websites are terrible. It's actually pathetic.
He goes bankrupt. How insane and cruel is that? So to me, I think healthcare is what unites us all. Everybody has family, they get sick. We all get born, we all die, we all want care. And we all have got to come together to create a system that works for all of us, not just the drug companies or the insurance companies.
There's just so many stories, and not even the horrific stories. There's countless horrific stories, but just basic stories of cost. Like my friend, Dr. Peter Attia, has this story where he happens to be wealthy, so he can afford it, but he had to take his son to the emergency room, and the son was dehydrated, and the bill was $6,000. They just did a basic test and gave him an IV, a basic thing, and he has really good insurance, and the insurance covered $4,000 of it, so he had to, at the end, pay $2,000 for a basic emergency room visit. And there's a lot of families for whom that one visit for such a simple thing would be just financially.
Wait, if he has good insurance, why? Okay, I mean, if you have really good insurance and you're paying $2,000 or whatever when you go to the emergency room, that typically means you're paying your deductible. And if you didn't pay your deductible or meet your deductible yet, then of course you're gonna have to pay that entire cost. But that's kind of built into the insurance plan already. Because if your deductible's met, then a regular emergency room visit would be capped. It's usually at like $150, $200, $250, some number. So the fact his friend had to pay $2,000 for one visit probably means he did not have his deductible paid, of course.
Really devastating.
And you know what? People know that. And you know what they say? I don't feel well today.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. I ain't going to go to that emergency room because I don't want a $6,000 bill. And what happens? He had insurance that paid 2/3 of it, right?
What's that one mental health
So what happens if
company
he didn't? What happens if he didn't have
that
money?
advertises on
He'd
YouTube?
be hounded by bill collectors for the rest of his life. So it is a disgusting system.
Oh, what is
an
it called?
inhumane system. But
The online
insurance
therapy
companies, the drug
platform.
companies are very powerful.
BetterHelp,
They
yeah.
make a lot of campaign contributions.
Did they fix their ethical issues?
But I think the American
I thought
people
they had a
want
big
fundamental
scandal.
changes there.
So that's another good example of a really popular idea that is not implemented because of the money in
You got it.
politics.
That's a wonder. And I'll tell you that. Not only is it not implemented because of money,
Better health,
it's
better
not
help.
even discussed. All right. So I'm saying here, and no one disputes me, we are spending twice as much per person on healthcare, right? And yet 85 million
it's over
Americans are
consumer
uninsured
data.
or underinsured, and our life expectancy is lower than virtually every other major country on Earth.
I
Do
thought
you
it was
think that
over
might be an issue
service.
that we be discussing?
Again, if a single politician discusses it, they get punished for
And they
it. So
settled
there
on
needs
it.
to be a mass movement, and probably, I mean, from my perspective, it has to come from the very top. It has to come from the president, and the president has to be a populist president where they don't care about the parties with the rich people. They just speak out because they know it's a popular message and they know it's the right thing. So speaking of that, you had a historic campaign run for president in 2016. And in the eyes of many people, mine included, you were screwed over by the DNC, as especially the WikiLeaks emails showed.
Okay, he was screwed over by the DNC in a sense of, okay, so all these party people, they know each other. All the politicians know each other. They all said Hillary was going to win. The Republican Party had like 10 Bushes run for president. They had a Bush be governor. This happens. It's not good. Nepotism, all that kind of stuff, whatever. The party obviously did not want Bernie to win. And the WikiLeaks emails were not that incriminating. But it was normal politicking behind the scenes for Bernie, who is an independent candidate coming into the Democratic primary. He did very well. And I think the only sense that it wasn't fair was if debates, certain debates were formatted in a way to make Bernie look bad. And although the superdelegates were not counted in yet, every time they showed the race between Hillary and Bernie Sanders, they would show delegates. They'd show Bernie's delegates after he won a couple states, Hillary's delegates, and then super delegates who have already pledged, which made it seem like Hillary had 5 times the support Bernie did in 2016. So it really made everyone sad and demotivated to even vote because they thought Bernie had no chance, although Bernie Sanders actually did get pretty close to beating Hillary against all the odds, which was insane. But Hillary is one of the most unpopular candidates in American history, which is wild. I believe the numbers right now, as far as favorability goes, I just saw this today. I don't have it pulled up, but Hillary's unfavorable numbers are at the same level of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And she was actually the least favorable person on the list under J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. Like, Hillary was one of the most, and she was on TV tonight. I want her to just go into hiding, okay? We don't got to hear any more from you. Please stop, please. And she was just on MSNBC. I believe Hillary was on MSNBC or CNN today complaining about how Comey came out with the emails, which was bad, but it was in 2016. Come on, Hillary. Take a step back, Hillary, please.
What's your just looking back feelings about that? Are you angry? Are you upset?
Yeah, of course I'm angry and of course I'm upset. But, when you take on, in this case, the Democratic establishment, who have controlled that party forever, the moneyed interest in the Democratic Party, you're taking on corporate America, when you're taking on the corporate media, and when you're calling for a political revolution that creates a government that works for all and not just the few, the opposition is going to be extraordinary. But what I am extremely proud of from that campaign in 2020 as well is that we took on the anointed candidate of the establishment, and we showed, despite the fact the entire establishment, I had in the Senate, I had one supporter. There were 50 Democrats. I had one supporter. I had no governors supporting me, I think. Maybe a few people in the House. But we took on the whole political establishment, and we
That is wild.
Got millions of votes. And
I know you're a DGGer, and Destiny wouldn't like any of these points, but like the fact they had the anointed candidate where it's like, okay, this person is going to win. This person needs to be the candidate, and no one's allowed to challenge them. And then Bernie comes in and causes all this mayhem. It is very, very interesting. And it shows the weakness of Hillary and also the system in general. And if you're going to be a private party, if the DNC's point is to self-sustain and, justify existing as a political party, they probably should have more contested primaries. I don't like the idea that an incumbent president is not, forced to debate. I think if you're incumbent, you should be debating and having a primary regardless. I know the whole party unity thing and whatever, but yeah, that stuff is just very weird. It's her turn to run, guys. It's her turn.
The ideas that we brought forth were ideas that they had to eventually deal with in one way or another. And
well, Destiny would probably say that Bernie talking about any rigging in 2016, there was no rigging. I agree with that. But he would probably say there were no concerns at all. But anyone that has any perspective of like political psychology and social awareness at the time knows that, of course, they were against him. And it wasn't a conspiracy. That's the big difference. Many progressives will say it was a conspiracy to keep Bernie out of the primary position. It wasn't a conspiracy. It's how the private political party operates their primaries. And they all did come together against Bernie in both primaries at both times. And that's fine. That's how it works. And you have to go in as an outsider. Bernie was never even a registered Democrat. He was an independent, and he ran in the Democratic primary. So you can't expect to have the support. If Bernie Sanders was a Democrat his entire life, he probably has more connections in the party to make it more fair. But yeah, progressives complaining about that election as a reason to not be engaged in politics is really silly. And I know many progressives that do that.
if you look at the American Rescue Plan, which I'm proud to have helped write, during the midst of COVID, a lot of the ideas that we fought for were implemented in that bill, and I want to make them obviously permanent.
And you almost won.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders got more of his policy platform done by losing closely and by being influential than he would have if he would have became president, in my opinion. Because if Bernie Sanders is president, they block everything he does, and I just feel like he was way more effective in the role that he was able to do, so that's pretty good.
And a lot of people thought that you would win against Donald Trump.
I think we would have.
Oh, he definitely would have beat Donald Trump, 100%.
I think Trump is a very,
There's
I
not
think
being
he's
a man
crazy between you and me,
alone.
but he is a smart politician, and he's appealing to a lot of the anger that working class people feel. And you know what? Working class people should feel angry, but they should make sure that their anger is directed in the right
Yeah, Harris
direction
is
and not
fine.
against people who are even
I'm
worse
fine with
off than they
that.
are, which is what demagogues like
The
Trump.
big mistake was not having a primary to begin with. That's the thing to criticize. Their transition to Harris was the fact that Harris' transition was so smooth was basically them admitting, like, okay, we messed up. We need to do this. We have no choice. We need to make this strong decision right now. Because yeah, not having any type of primary, not having any debates or anything like that with a very unpopular president, although he should be popular based on actual real world facts. We're at the strongest economic period in American history, but somehow people think we're not. Yeah, the way they did Harris is fine, but I also think it was making up for their mistakes. Biden did not look good in 2020. Biden was not able to talk publicly in 2020. He was able to escape from that because they had no debates or they only had like one or two debates, whatever, because of COVID. Biden was able to hide a little bit, and Donald Trump just like crashed and burned like usual. So
Always do. So, I think we had, as I went around the country then and now, we have a lot of support from working class people who understand that there is something wrong. And this is an incredible fact that no one talks about. All right, I'm going to ask you a question. Are you ready for this, Lex?
Let's go.
Here we go. Over the last 50 years, there's been a massive increase in worker productivity as a result of technology, right? Everyone agrees with that. And I don't know exactly what it is, but the worker today is producing a lot more than the worker 50 years ago doing something similar. Is the worker today, in real inflation accounted for dollars, making more money than that worker 50 years ago?
Well, there's a lot of close arguments there, but your point is well taken that it's either the same or a little bit higher or a little bit lower, depending on the statistics. It has not increased significantly, and the wealth inequality has increased significantly.
That is the point. So you would think that if a worker is producing a lot more, that worker would be better off, would be working lesser.
When Bernie talks about money here as well, so we look at first the American dollar, wages, how much things cost, and then how much things cost from different industries or sectors, so like consumer goods, groceries, and then you look at money in terms of overall wealth and power. And when Bernie talks about this, I feel like it's more of a power frame. So if workers are making less now, obviously general well-being, the American dollar right now, even if workers are making less money compared to inflation and the overall money supply, now we can buy flat screens and fancy cars and Bluetooth and all that stuff. But in terms of our ability to own things and influence the political process and acquire wealth, and not need to rely on renting and other, systems, we have less of an ability to control our own destiny, and more of that power is concentrated with the wealthy. So Bernie's talking about money as in power here. And the inequality is a concern for that reason. But general well-being among humans is higher than it's ever been right now. Really important differentiation right there. I kind of like these streams with only like one person. I like it. We could just have a nice little talk, a conversation for me to relax at the end of the night. Making content's hard. Deciding on what to do. I might just start doing what I enjoy doing. The algorithm's stupid. Very stupid. I do think this is generally boring content, and just like relitigating a lot of the conversations from like 2016 and whatever, but it's kind of interesting. Who knows? I want to do some debates and that kind of thing, but I can't find podcasts to go on for real. I've been trying to find podcasts to go on in real life. I just can't find them, bro. I want to find something in Pennsylvania to go on. And Biden, age deterioration. He's only gotten worse in terms of public appearances, and being president is mostly being the head of state, not the head of government. As the head of government, Biden did great, but as like an influential speaker, he's obviously too old to do that. But that doesn't mean, he can't do well as a head of government. He's done fantastic in government. Joe Biden has not done well when it comes to holding a microphone and being influential because he's tired and old. So it makes sense that he can't go around the entire country campaigning, doing media engagements, because that is not going to test how you're going to do as president. That's going to test how good you are at selling the idea you could be president, which is how Donald Trump even won, because Donald Trump is one of the dumbest, least successful, fake, most fraudulent, evil human beings to ever walk the earth. Okay, and he was able to win because he knew how to lie to people. For owning stuff, the biggest barriers are all local. Zoning, sure. But when Bernie talks about like total money and just power politically concentrated, I'm not even talking about housing. But if you just like how much of a share of the total money supply do we own? We own a lot less now in general than the bottom 99% did 50 years ago or whenever the time frame is.
Or hours,
Whatever that
etc.
means.
That hasn't been the case. And what has happened in that 50 years is, according to the Rand Corporation,
Yeah,
there
definitely.
has been a 50 trillion with a T, redistribution of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. So you got CEOs today making
I'm worried
300
about
times more than their
overconsumption.
workers. You got 3 people on top owning more wealth than the bottom.
I'm more worried about people not caring about CEOs. I'd rather people care about CEOs than care about immigrants. You know what? Like, I'd rather people advocate for like a wealth tax, even if it's like sketchy policy, versus mass deportation. That's like the two ways populism can go. It can go like wealth tax or mass deportation. Like, but yeah. And a lot of I don't like overconsumption. I feel like that's a big issue. Americans consume more than any other country in the world per capita. We consume way too much energy. We make way too many cars. We own cars for a short period of time. Americans have tons of car debt, credit card debt, gambling debt, sports betting debt, sports concert tickets, all that kind of stuff. We overconsume so much. And that culture is terrible because if you walk that back at all, people are going to freak out if they lose that privilege to just do whatever they want. There's one, yeah, honestly, yeah, I agree. We got to get rid of them. We got
half
to.
of American society. So that's why people are angry. And they're worried that their kids may have a lower standard of living than they in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. So there's a lot of anger out there. And I think we tap some of that anger in a constructive way, essentially saying, you know what? We don't need so few to have so much in wealth and power. Let's distribute it more fairly in America.
I got to get back to 2016 because it's such a historic moment. So there's a lot of fans of yours that wanted you to keep fighting because you forgave in the end the establishment and joined them in support. And your fans wanted you to keep fighting for a takeover, for a progressive takeover of the Democratic Party. If you just look back and had to do it.
I was one of those people, for real. But I was like 16. You know, usually when you have these ideas when you're young, it's okay. When you're 16, like, we're going to take over the party. But after I heard some intelligent people and I got past the age of 18, I was able to shift my opinions. Obviously, some people don't change their opinions all the way until they're like 80 years old, aka like a Jill Stein. But yeah, I learned pretty quick not to believe that. I was a Bernie bro for real. Oh, crap.
It all over again. What would you do different?
Well, by the way, in terms of a takeover of the Democratic Party, we did try. We ran, do you know who Keith Ellison is? Keith is now the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. He's doing a great job, really, one of the outstanding Attorney Generals in the country. And Keith was then a member of Congress. And we ran Keith to become the head of the DNC. And the establishment from the President of the United States on down went crazy. And they beat him by a few votes, not a whole lot. So it's...
I don't like the word establishment. I know that's the Bernie Sanders thing, but for the future, he can do what he wants. Bernie did it, you know. Bernie deserves to say whatever he wants, however he wants. I remember them talking about Bernie being sexist. Bernie had the heart attack. He was too unhealthy to be president, and now he sounds like great still. But Bernie can say what he wants. But the term establishment, I don't think really encapsulates the problems Bernie's trying to identify, because establishment kind of sounds like cabal, in a sense of you're kind of directing anger at that general, very vague body. So I'd rather talk more specifically about the party relationships at hand. Yeah, establishment just sounds very open to bad interpretation.
Look, you're faced, and you know, that's the exact same position that many of us are in right today.
What are your right-leaning positions, Egghead? What would you consider to be your more conservative positions? Are you like John Kasich? You have some John Kasich opinions?
So people say, well, why did you support Hillary Clinton? Yeah, what's the alternative? Donald Trump? I think Donald Trump is an extremely dangerous person trying to undermine American democracy. So I can't support him. You know, Hillary Clinton, obviously, his views are very, very different than mine. But that in that moment, you know, that's where politics becomes really tricky. And it ain't easy. And, you know.
No, Bernie, that's when you vote third party, bro. That's when you vote third party and stick it to the man, bro. That's when you vote third party. When politics gets messy, bro. Yeah, bro. Bernie got Hillary to support like a $15 minimum wage and everything. He really got her to support a couple key policies
Sometimes you have to do
by
things that
being
you're
smart.
not really all that excited about. But I think it was right to try to do what I could to prevent Trump from
What
getting
about okay? So wealth
elected.
is not
And in
inherently
2020 I
bad,
did.
but what about like? I think it's fine if someone makes $10 billion, but I think there should be some limit. I don't think someone should be able to make $350 billion, and that can change over time. But if there was like a wealth cap of like $10 billion for one person, I think I'd be fine with that.
Did the same with Biden, and we had more
Just
success
in
with
terms
Biden
of,
than we had
I
with
don't care
Clinton.
about materialism at all. Just from a power perspective, I don't think one man should have all that power. I don't think one person in general should have all that power. That's very scary. So I would definitely put limits like that.
Well, there's this interesting story about a long time coming
Harris
meeting
does.
between you and Obama.
That's what I'm saying. Bernie's commitment to supporting Hillary and Biden did so much for progressive issues. And if you would have asked the Bernie bro at the time, they probably would have said that Bernie should have just like crashed out and ruined the entire party and helped Hillary lose to Trump and whatever. And you know, Bernie didn't do that. He just did smart things, and yeah, he got a lot of good things done.
In 2018, I believe. So Ari Rabenhoft, who was a former deputy campaign manager, wrote a great book.
See,
I would say about
I
you.
don't agree though, because we're seeing Elon Musk right now do something that was useful. So electric cars, space exploration, you know, home solar panel, new solar panel roofs, and internet and satellites and all this infrastructure and government contracts. And yeah, and that's when you get to the point where this person made money off of all these industries doing good quote unquote things, but the moment that person wants to, they can shift into becoming a neo-Nazi like Elon Musk did. And I don't think, even if you do very important things in these fields, yeah, $10 billion, $50 billion, whatever the limit is, there could be some limit. Even if the limit was $50 billion, I think it would help in terms of total wealth you're able to hold as a person. And I'm sure there'd be some way to divest it into different companies and different investments. But yeah, I just don't like the concept of one person having that much power, mainly. Biden was more of a progressive president domestically, definitely. I'm very happy with Biden's presidency, and it's been very successful. Anyone who doesn't like Biden's domestic policy has been bit by the propaganda bug. And every indicator in America is doing great right now. And the only policies that could help at this point are redistribution and building up social safety nets, expanding Obamacare, public option, doing some more broad health care, you know, child tax credits, expanding Medicare to cover at-home costs. All that kind of stuff is what's going to help people's economic positions. But right now, the American dollar buys more groceries than it did in 2019. So we need to just like confront this. Even people who are pretty well-meaning are lying, or they're unable to cope with numbers changing, like the Dollar Tree not being $1 for everything anymore. The economy is strong in terms of comparing it to other years of the American economy, but there's other things we need to fix about the system. And Biden's entire platform that Republicans fought against the entire time would have addressed many of those things, of course. Taxing him more? Yeah, Warren Buffett doesn't do this stuff, but he could. Also, wait, okay, yeah, but here's the point though. If someone has that much money, so Elon Musk right now working with Russia to like stall Ukrainian forces and maybe like prevent Starlink from being in Taiwan, and working with Russia to spread Russia propaganda by buying a $50 billion platform in the US for social media, and he has so much money where it's virtually impossible to hold him accountable legally. And now the US president has pardon power as well. All of those things combined, it's just like, oh my. And that's a lot of vertical versus horizontal monopolies. Your growth into other industries. Maybe a billionaire shouldn't be able to own a very critical aspect of every single form of business in every sector. Maybe that could be another restriction. There's tons of ways to limit this power. But I feel like right now, you know, it's hard to hold very powerful people accountable. So I think we should just we should do what Donald Trump said today. We should have zero federal tax and just tax only tariffs. I can't believe every Trump rally, he just talks about how we need to go back to the policies of like 1650. He's like, yeah, back in 1523, the tariffs and the merchants and we have to go back to this. We got to go back that far to find good policies. We need to do tariffs, no more federal income tax.
So on the road with Bernie Sanders, And he tells many great stories, but one of them is your meeting with Obama. And he says,
yes, if there was a cap of $10 billion, Elon Musk would have had to have a very diverse group of stakeholders to buy Twitter. Just like anyone buys like an NBA team or whatever business. Very, very diverse group of stakeholders. And the money he has in assets and stock in these companies would be limited. And also what he has as liquid cash to actually put into presidential campaigns would be limited as well. It wouldn't be possible. I'm just saying I think there should be some limit on that power. Tariffs. I love the word tariff. Tariffs are fantastic. You know, they haven't done tariffs since 1790. They were fantastic back then.
that Obama told you, Bernie.
1820.
I wish I could do a good Obama impression.
1920.
Bernie, you're an Old
1910.
Testament prophet, a moral voice for our party, giving us guidance. Here's the thing, though. Prophets don't get to be king. Kings have to make choices. Prophets don't.
Oh, do I think Harris would do an arms embargo on Israel? Maybe. I think there's a chance, honestly. Not an arms embargo in a sense of they're going to cut off all arms, but conditional. So, for example, if you don't meet these goals by these dates, we are restricting this kind of support. She's not just going to like cut off all aid to Israel. Like, that's not going to happen. I'd probably be more conservative on the wealth thing than most liberals or leftists or progressives would be. I don't know. And part of that could just be funding the IRS more, funding federal watchdogs more, funding federal prosecution cases and having a better attorney general and going after these cases more aggressively. So it could just be a whole effect throughout all of government. And giving people good information and stuff can inoculate us against the worst effects.
Don't. Are you willing to make those choices? Basically, Obama's making the case that you have to sort of moderate your approach in order to win. So was Obama right?
Look, and again, that's why politics is very, very fascinating. Sometimes you can run and lose and you really win if your goal is not just individual power, but transforming society. One of my heroes, you mentioned Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who is one of my heroes. Another one of my heroes is Eugene Victor Debs. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
For many reasons. Yes.
All right. Debs, many listeners may not know who Debs was. Debs was a union organizer in the early 1900s, helped form the American Railway Union, ran for president, I think, 5 times, ran the last time while he was in a jail cell because of his opposition to World War I and got 1 million votes doing that. Debs lost badly in every race that he ran in. In 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt ran for president, and much of what Roosevelt ended up doing was at least some of what Debs had talked about. Debs helped lay the groundwork for ideas. So sometimes you can lose and win if you're into transforming society. What my view is, where I disagree with Obama, is I think you have got to raise consciousness among ordinary people. And when people know what's going on and are prepared in an organized way to fight for change, they can make incredible changes. And we've seen that in recent years.
I disagree in a sense. So Donald Trump has woken up a lot of people who I guess Bernie would consider ordinary people. But it just so happens. So we have a situation where we had very low voter turnout in the U.S. But the people that did come out to vote in 2004, 2008, 2012, these were lower turnout elections, largely because, the engagement level to vote was much higher. So you read it through newspapers, you read it through the television, you had conversations with your neighbors. There was still propaganda and everything, and that was before social media took a full hold. But anything pre-2012, the voter turnout was a lot lower than it was in 2016 and 2020. But the voter turnout spiking tons also means many people who probably are not that well equipped to handle information that's coming out are now voting. So activating more ordinary people is great, but those ordinary people need to have a base level understanding of what policies to advocate for, because many times they just come in like Donald Trump. I would argue the voters Donald Trump brought into the political process really raised the voter rolls as in terms of voter turnout in the U.S., but it lessened the overall average median voters' intelligence level and ability to make good decisions. So we're welcoming a lot of people into the process that are making really bad choices that are harming themselves as well. So yeah, encourage more people to vote, but also we need a huge education push in this country. The education push we make is going to be the most consequential thing we do in human history that the education push in the next 5 to 10 years.
Today we take for granted, we have a woman running for president of the United States, so I'm supporting. We have had other women running for president. We have women governors and senators.
Very true.
Not so many years ago in the United States Senate, there were 98 men, 2 women.
Pokemon right? Go to the polls.
Even before that, 1920, it was when women got the right to vote. How did that change? How did women's role in society change? It changed because women and their male allies stood up and fought. Gay rights. Old enough to remember that anybody I knew who was gay, you think they would talk about it? Come out about it? No, they wouldn't. That's changed. We have seen, in terms of civil rights, massive changes. Change happens when people at the grassroots level demand that. We talked about healthcare a moment ago. We will get universal Medicare for all when millions of people make it clear that's what they want. So I believe politics starts at the grassroots level, and that's how you got to bring about change.
So just to go back to Obama, though, in many ways, he too is a singular historic figure in American politics who has brought about a lot of change. He's a symbol I think that'll be remembered for a long time. What do you admire most about Obama?
Well, I know him. We're not best friends, but I know him well, and we chat every once in a while. First of all, don't underestimate what it was in 2008 to be the first black president in the history of this country. And I think few would deny that he's an extraordinarily intelligent guy, very, very articulate, one of the best speakers that there is in America. And that he and his family, and again, it's a lot harder than it looks. He and his family for 8 years, that's his wife, Michelle, and his kids, really held that office in a way that earned, I think, the respect of the American people, even if people disagree with him politically. So he deserves, and again, don't underestimate. I think, years ago, there were people who said a black president in our lifetimes, never going to happen, can't happen, too racist the country. He did it. And that is a huge accomplishment. And I think, he has had some significant achievements in his presidential tenure. He and I, did disagree on a number of issues. I think he would tell you, I think his public stance is that, if you have to start all over again, he would do Medicare for all, single payer. But where we are right now, the best he could do is the Affordable Care Act.
Obama's tan suit was crazy.
And we disagree on other things. But, I think he deserves an enormous...
So that's also why many people accept civility politics to be gone, because the voter base before cared about civility politics. If you look at the voters between like McCain and Obama, if you put Trump against Obama instead, so you have a huge portion of those like really uneducated voters coming in, or uninformed voters, or propagandized voters, whatever you want to call them. Many of those McCain voters are going to move over to Obama. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why Joe Biden got like 80 million votes and Trump got like 74 million votes after Hillary just got 66 million and Trump got 63 million. We had an unprecedented rise in total votes, not only because of mail-in ballots, but in 2020, we had a huge rise in overall votes. And I wonder what the numbers are going to be this election. It's going to be, I'm not ready. I want it to be over, but I'm not ready, dude. I don't think we understand how bad it's going to be if Donald Trump wins. I feel like I need to look at citizenship for other countries, or getting like trying to immigrate somewhere, because I don't know. Once America like leaves NATO and pardons every criminal and tries to do like a fascist uprising with a bunch of militias, I don't know what's going to happen with Trump in office, man. I really don't.
Amount of credit for what he has accomplished.
And he, like you, also gave a damn good speech opposing the Iraq War before running for president, and that takes courage.
Yes, it does.
But then it also shows that once you get into office, it's not so easy to oppose or to work against the military-industrial complex.
It is very hard. People do not fully appreciate how powerful the establishment is, whether it is the healthcare industry, whether it's the military-industrial complex, whether it's the fossil fuel industry. These people have unlimited amounts of money. They're very smart lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and they're very, very greedy people. They want it all.
I have to ask you about capitalism, the pros and cons. So you wrote a book, It's Okay to be Angry About Capitalism. That is a thorough, rigorous criticism of, I would say, hypercapitalism.
Yes, that's right.
A certain kind of capitalism that you argue that we are existing today in the United States. But a lot of people would attribute
But Jill
capitalism,
Stein doesn't care.
all the amazing
Jill Stein
technological
doesn't care
innovations
about anyone.
over the past 70 plus years that have contributed to increase in quality of life, in GDP, in decrease in poverty, decrease in infant mortality, increase in expected life expectancy. So what are the how do you see the tension, the pros of capitalism and the cons of capitalism?
Some of my European friends, they say, Bernie, in the United States, you're considered to be very radical. If you were here in, France or Denmark or someplace, you'd be kind of mainstream left guy, not all that radical. So this is what I think. I think the best that we could do right now, where we are right now, is to create a society which does two things. It encourages innovation, but at the same time, it makes sure that all people in a wealthy nation have a decent standard of living. In some countries, if you look at Scandinavia, and this shocks people because we don't talk about this at all.
See, that's why I don't like Bernie calling himself a democratic socialist, because that's just like social democrat norm. So like everyone has a standard of living, everyone has a standard of healthcare, but above that standard of healthcare, you can still have wealth. So it's still a 2-tier or a 3-tier system, but that first tier is pretty good still. But if you want extra things or a bigger house or a nicer car, then you can compete in the overall market. That is very social democratic. That's not socialist. But you can argue Bernie Sanders is just saying that because that's like the quickest transition we can get from capitalism, straight up capitalism at least, or rugged individualism, more collectivist thought like that. A UBI, not really a UBI. UBIs are a little bit sketchy, but something like that.
So in Scandinavia, it has been the case, Denmark, Finland, Norway, for years, that people have healthcare. That's not a big deal. You end up in the hospital, so what? They don't pay a bill. You have, and this shocks people, in America right now, we have people who get 1 week, 2 weeks off paid vacation. Sometimes people get nothing. You know that? There are people out there who have no vacation at all. In Germany, you get 6 weeks paid vacation and other holidays as well. People are shocked by that. In America, we don't have paid family and medical leave. The only major country not to do it. Other countries, your wife gets sick, you stay home with her. Your kids get sick, not a big deal. You get a certain amount of paid family and medical leave. Cost of prescription drugs are far more affordable. So what you want to do is create what's called a social safety net. That means I don't care what your income is. Of course, you're going to have healthcare as a human right. Of course, you're going to have housing that is affordable.
I don't think Trump's making any decisions. Trump's not quoting, like he's not getting these Hitler quotes and loading them up. He's not getting he's not getting the 1798 Enemies Within Alien Enemies Act or whatever from himself. He's getting that from Stephen Miller and very well thought out neo-Nazis. So he's a puppet. He's the definition of a puppet. All the people behind the scenes controlling Trump are violent fascists. They are violent fascists. It just matters if they win and are able to control Trump, or can maybe Peter Thiel just wants to have like a cryptocracy over the government, and Elon Musk. Oh man, Elon Musk too. I think the geopolitics she's going to win. You're right. Nothing bad's going to happen because, Harris is going to win.
Of course, your kids are going to have great quality education from childcare to university without much cost. Every country has a little bit different.
What's up, Allie? We're just hanging out. Thank you for encouraging likes. But yeah, we're just hanging out, watching the end of this, and then I'm going to get off. This is my cool down session for the night. No content matters. We are talking about policy, and we're talking about real world, beautiful things like Kamala Harris winning because it's a guarantee. She already won. Guaranteed.
Perfect.
I'm declaring victory right now.
Right now, I think in Germany, I think the college is now tuition free, as I recall. For obvious reasons, they want to have the best educated workforce they can. So
yeah, but Trump wants to leave. He's wanted to leave NATO and things like that. And all the remember the generals that are coming out now, all of these generals calling him a fascist and calling him Hitler, all of these generals are, he's going to want retribution and vengeance. He is that type of person. So if Donald Trump simply gets the US out of NATO and destroys NATO alone, that creates a huge domino effect for the globe that is unpredictable. And Palestine is going to be literally rubble. Like we're going to go from nearing genocide to nearing extinction of Gaza civilians. And it's like there's so many things, man. But the good thing that's not happening, man. Good thing.
In terms of government playing a role in a civilized democratic society of providing all basic needs, healthcare, education,
from Kim
housing,
Kardashian.
Retirement benefits. Yes, that is what we've got to do. Now, does that mean then that the government
Peace,
is going to run every
love,
mom
and
and pop store in the corner? Of course
Peace,
not.
love, and positivity.
You want innovation? You want to go out and start a business, produce a product. Good luck to you. Make money. But on the other hand, in terms of even making money, we want you to be able to do that. Come up with good products, good services. But do I think you should end up with $100 billion? I don't. And you know what's funny? I did an interview with Bill Gates, who is I think the third wealthiest guy in the country, struggling behind Musk and Bezos, I think. And he's only worth $100+ billion, but he gets by. And I said to him, Bill, he was supposed to ask me questions. I asked him the question. I said, Bill, tell me something. You're an innovator with Microsoft and all that stuff. Did you know that you'd become a multi-billionaire? And was that motivated you?
I had no idea Bernie had an interview with Bill Gates. I'm going to have to find that. But at least Brianna Joy Gray will remain pure because she voted for Jill Stein.
And he said, no. And I believe he was honest. I love doing I love programming. He was a kid. He started doing that. He loved it. He was motivated by it. Do you think that there are scientists out there who work in day and night trying to develop drugs to deal with Alzheimer's or cancer, that they're motivated, if I come up with this drug, I'm going to become a billionaire? So I think, we want to reward success. Fine. But you don't need $1 billion. We want people to get satisfaction from what they accomplish, the work they're doing, whether it's
remember Jared Kushner's success with making money from Saudi Arabia, and Jared Kushner already said that Gaza is going to make beautiful beachfront property. They are going to make
In this country right now.
Well, no. Okay, this video is copyrighted, or I would watch it.
Spending over
I'm gonna
$200
watch
million.
it. I will watch it.
Is that working class issues, whether you're black or white or Latino or Asian?
AOC,
Okay, let me ask you about
section.
The future of the Democratic Party. So one of the biggest impacts you've had is you've been the fuel, the catalyst for the increase of the progressive caucus, the progressive movement within the Democratic Party. Do you think that is the future? The progressives, even Democratic socialist leaders will take over the party?
That is the most important question regarding, to my mind, American politics.
He did
One of the successes that we've had, and I'm proud to have played a role in this, is that if you go to the House of Representatives right now, you will see almost 100 members of the Progressive Caucus, led very well by a woman from...
But, you know, genocide under Harris is the same as genocide under Trump, because they're both genocide. And I'm going to let go of all critical thinking ability, because I don't care about anything that happens in the world, because I am very privileged and mad at people. And I don't care what really happens, because I'm going to be okay, because I have, you know, that's what their thinking is. They're going to be okay. They will be okay. They're going to be okay.
From Washington,
I'm mad. I'm pure.
You know, it's people like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez.
Did you cover Jimmy Dore? Yes. Send me all the Jimmy Dore content. If you find my Discord, or my Discord name, or my email, thetruthmattersmedia@gmail.com, if you have any videos for me to react to, I want people sending me things all the time. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Allie. Maybe I'll get to that. I need to restructure my Discord and everything so it's more usable for submissions and all that kind of stuff. I want to have a good 3 months here from the election to the inauguration of YouTube. I don't know if I'm going to do it past that, but I want to have a good few months here. So I definitely want to get things in order. And I accept these recommendations. I need content. I need some content, some clickbait.
In Ilhan Omar and many others.
I love it. That's my favorite topic.
Often women, people of color, and many of them come from working class backgrounds.
Get me some debates. If you know any, I need some debates. I got to find something. My dream is to find like a local conservative podcast I can go on. But my bread and butter is debating progressives. That's my favorite thing in the world. I love those.
You know, it's people like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and many others. Many of them are young, often women, people of color, and many of them come from working class backgrounds. So what we have been able to do in recent years, elect a number of strong progressives who represent working families very, very effectively. The struggle in the Democratic Party is between the corporate wing and the progressive wing. And, you know, the corporate wing takes a whole lot of money, sees its salvation in getting a whole lot of money from wealthy individuals and, you know, large corporations, and is not very vigorous, in my view, in representing the needs of working class people. If they were, we would have health care for all. We would have a minimum wage that was a living wage. We would not have a housing crisis. We would not have a tax system in which billionaires pay an effective tax rate that is lower than a truck driver or nurse. So I think one of the reasons that Trump has had political success is he is not so much his ideas. Most working class people don't think we should give tax breaks to billionaires or worry about the size of Arnold Palmer's genitalia.
It's one of those
they
videos.
Are angry.
Okay.
People are angry. And the Democrats have not responded effectively to that anger. So the struggle that we are waging right now is the future of the Democratic Party. Will it be a party of the working class?
I'll check that out tomorrow,
and represent working class issues, whether you're black or white or Latino or Asian or whatever you may be? Or will it be a corporately
I'm going to delete that one
party?
egghead. I'm going to delete the one Discord egghead and go back to my old one. I'll do that tomorrow because I'm seepy.
Struggle we're in right now.
Did you consider running in 2024? From my perspective, I would have loved it if you ran. I think you would have had a great chance
every 4 years
winning, not just the primary.
I might contact those people for the debate stuff. I could see myself continue streaming. Okay, here's my big conflict. So whenever I do a channel, I need a real life driving force for doing it. So in 2020, I had a reason. In 2019, I had a reason. 2021, I had a reason. Then after January 6th and everything fizzled out, I did a couple debates. Then I stopped doing YouTube in general. Then I started doing it again. Literally, I started my YouTube after going to a Tim Walz, Kamala. I went to the first event in Philadelphia, and that really lit me up again. I was on fire. I'm ready to do YouTube again. And it's really interesting too, because whenever you saw January 6th happen on my stream. I predicted that whole thing. I predicted it. No one knows that I predicted it, and I don't even want to talk about it because my video back then was terrible, and I look really cringy. But I know I make decent content. You can look at my numbers even coming back for a month now. I think it's officially like a little bit over a month since I've been making videos again, maybe a month. I came right back, and my analytics have been great, and I know it's because it's the presidential season. But I know I make decent content. If I refined it even more, it'd be even better, and that kind of stuff. I know the algorithm enough. But like I said, I need that fire and passion to make myself want to make videos. I also have real life stuff I'm engaged in. But what I've been working on is getting better at finding content and making content for the sake of making content. And if I ever get into politics, I'm going to need to do this as well. But repeating talking points, knowing my go-tos, all that kind of stuff. So I need more of a content brain. And I would love in-person engagements with people. I would love an in-person podcast or traveling around and talking to people about these things instead of just talking to myself on a camera. That would be my favorite content to make. So maybe after the election, I'll try to pivot to that.
About the presidency.
I gave about 5 minutes to it. And the reason was we have a slogan of the progressive movement. It's not about me, it's about us. And, you know, to have taken on Biden, who, in my view, on domestic issues has been quite strong, would have really split the Democratic Party. And
I appreciate that, Aked. I have no money, though. I am broke right now.
Want to see. So
no money.
Sometimes in life, and I know that a lot of younger people don't agree with me, but you got to make choices which are painful. So I strongly supported Biden because I like
channel members.
I like his domestic
for $3 a month, $2.99
against a lot of opposition, and I'm supporting Kamala right now. But I'm doing my best to see that a dangerous guy like Donald Trump.
I'll make videos every day just for you.
And the hope for you is that there will be future candidates that are populist, that are progressive.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me ask you about AOC. She's become one of the most influential voices for the progressive cause in the United States.
A little bit.
You two had a great conversation on your podcast.
I just need to commit to it.
And in general, you work together.
And I'm scared.
So what's to you is most impressive about her?
I really like Alexandria a whole lot. She is a young woman who comes from a working class background.
Okay. I mean, honestly, if I had an editor, I probably could buff up my videos just to make $500 a month off ad revenue alone. But I don't know if that's worth it. They'd be making like $1 an hour. Like, it'd be like $1 an hour, and I'd be paying them half of the revenue that I'm making. Oh, thanks, Egghead. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's really lighting my night up. AOC could run a successful presidential campaign. Yes, she could. I can see her running for Senate. Perfect for Live and Learn. Yeah, they should get me on Live and Learn. That would be fantastic. That'd be really fun in general. Yeah, thank you, Aked. I can't wait to see more channel members pop up, and I'll add emotes and stuff like that. I think AOC. There's a okay, Egghead. Egghead, you're doing. Thank you, Egghead. Let there be more light. Every time you send a super chat, it heightens the chance that I'm gonna be a big YouTuber, egg official sponsor, and a supporter. Wow, I'm taking a screenshot. I'm taking a little screenshot of that. Look at that. Look at that morale boost right there. Now I need to make 15 videos tomorrow and post them all in succession. Thank you, Aked. Now I have to post. I need to devote 5 hours a day to making content now just because of you. Really appreciate it. Wow, I'm going to get a tattoo of this screenshot. You're gifting memberships too. Need another screenshot. Thank you. Got a rad background, unique perspective, and compelling demeanor. Thank you. Solidify my professional brand. Thank you. My personal brand, I mean. Oh, I need another. No extra work required. I need more extra work. Wow, Egghead. At the end of my videos, Egghead's gonna be MVP of the month, of the year. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm saving that screenshot. That's amazing. What's up, everyone? Can you still hoop? Yeah. I honestly could make pretty dynamic content, to be honest. I just don't know what the balance is, because I'm actually like pretty decent at gaming and real life sports and stuff. So I mean, I'd be able to make some pretty cool content based around that. I don't know. Even if it's just like me talking about some type of political topic with other stuff as the background, so it's not so one-dimensional. I don't know. Maybe I'll just have fun. But I don't know. Maybe I'll make a channel in Discord that's gonna be like a focus group. And if you like me, part of people that don't give memberships and don't have any money to support my channel. Thank you, Aked. Factorio streamer. I can probably get on Destiny stream again, and there is a real chance that I run for an actual office in a few years, so I can probably leverage that as well to get more support. But I can make like a focus group on Discord. That's just like, if you like my content and you want me to make more content, then you can help me make content by recommending videos to watch, recommending content. What do you think would be cool for me to do? That kind of stuff. Maybe we could do something like that. Because honestly, I'm busy throughout the day. I work in a space that has to do with just like engagement in general. So I'm working throughout the day, traveling a decent amount. If I could go on Discord and if I had people in there that were just like dropping links like, hey, this is the hot story today, it'd probably be good to make a video on this. That'd be awesome. Like that'd be just as good as a monetary donation, because half of my content preparation is deciding what stories are worth the time to actually go through and make a video about, and then making like, can I have a good thumbnail for this and also a good title. And I think my thumbnail game now is 5,000 times better than it was when I did YouTube in 2020. I think my thumbnail game is much better now. You sent a Jimmy Dore video about Ukraine. Thank you. All right. Okay. You're motivating me. You're all motivating me. I'm going to fix the Discord tomorrow. The Discord is going to be clean. Okay. The Discord command does not work in here yet. I need to do that too. So I need to fix commands for the chat. Okay. I need multi-streaming. I need the regular stream. It did work. Oh, it does work. I think that's the old. Yeah, but the Ben Shapiro Jubilee video gives me copyright strikes. I feel like they have deals with them, so they're able to do that. Okay, that Discord is to my wrong Discord. I need to fix that. But I did not know that link actually worked. But Jay did. So thank you, Jay, for pointing that out. That I do have hyperlinks in the chat. But I want this stream, the YouTube Shorts stream, Twitch stream, all the streams up, all the stuffs, all the memes. I want to get the Discord good. I'll do that tomorrow. Thanks for all the motivation. You really just keep me going. Beautiful.
She helped the mother clean house.
Yeah, one is Jolah YT, one is Jolah V2. I made the V2 just to see who was like currently engaging, but there's a lot of viewers on just like the regular Discord that are finding my videos again, so I don't want to abandon them just in case if they're still there. Yeah.
She was a bartender in the Bronx, New York. And I'm very proud that my campaign for president inspired her to run. And she ran on a progressive working class program. And she took on one of the more powerful guys, a guy named Joe Crowley, who was pretty high up in the Democratic Party. And she knocked on doors. She had no money. She did a very strong grassroots effort. And
someone said something about AOC. I was going to say that I can see AOC waiting for when Schumer's done, running for Senate, becoming a senator, and then running for president as a senator. I think going as a representative to running for president is going to be more difficult. But who knows what's going to make sense in politics in the next 10 years, so I don't really know.
Appreciate that. So that's number one. I like what she stands for. She's incredibly smart. And she has that certain charisma that, maybe you're born with it, maybe you develop it. I don't know. A couple of years ago, she came up here to Vermont to spend some time. She and her partner, Riley, came up. And we were out in the street, and people saw her, and they said, "Oh, Congresswoman," and she just smiled, and she had an approach to people which was beautiful. I mean, it wasn't phony; it was real. But to be a politician, you got to know how to, you could be a great intellectual, but you can't relate to people. She relates well to people.
Got to relate to them. Okay, here's one question too for anyone in chat right now. Our little focus group. Okay, if I were to make 5 high-effort videos, each video is going to be me talking for 10 minutes about the election, all that kind of stuff. What are some key topics that I should expand on? Like, one video I want to make is like a final message to progressives not voting Kamala Harris. Maybe do some videos on general just immigration and fascism and populism and that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think what topics I want to focus in on, because I want to have some really strong videos that I enjoy making right before the election. Like, what are some really compelling topics that are just like think pieces? No editing, but just those videos where you just like talk, What are some good topics? I could talk about like some Legos and some like Minecraft, some Sonic the Hedgehog lore. I could do a Sonic the Hedgehog video. I feel like that might be kind of... Ooh, I can diss Tom McDonald. Do y'all know Tom McDonald by chance, the MAGA rapper? If you were here for my channel before, I did reactions to Tom McDonald, and it would be like angry liberal reacts to Tom McDonald with a picture of me doing this. And I would get 60,000 views. on the video, and I got 200 likes and 20,000 dislikes. So like 60,000 views, 200 likes, 20,000 dislikes. I was thinking about making a Tom McDonald diss track, but putting actual effort into it. All negative comments. I was thinking about doing it just for fun. Like, why would I care? On the election. If I can clickbait a Tom McDonald diss track and put on Apple Music or whatever, and just have like people and get like 100,000 views randomly, I feel like I'd have I would have so much fun doing that. The UAP issues, the House and Senate, unironically, Oversight Committee having a meeting November 13th. All right, I'll make sure I write that down in notes as well. The hard part about those topics is that, so for example, in a stream when we have conversations, if I do a podcast with people in general and we talk about like hearings and policies and different things happening and different proceedings, that can come out in a 2-hour podcast. But when it comes to topic videos, so like my usual 10-minute videos about something, there's not really a place for me to make that video because no one's going to watch it. The algorithm's not going to pick it up. So there's a balance on educational content people are going to watch, and then just like core substance. What like I would consider the 3 topics would be 3 genres: pure educational, pure clickbait, which pure clickbait was like my Obama Eminem video, which I still tied in substance. And then there's that middle point where I focus purely on rhetoric. And what I'm saying for the election, I want some really rhetorically strong videos because I'm looking to run for actual races in the near future, and I want to make sure I lock down some different thought patterns and how I describe these thought patterns. And the only way to get better at these things is to actually put them out in the world and have people react to them. So there's some I need to focus in on what those topics are going to be.
So I think both from a
See, I would do drama if I can tie it back to politics, because I know that's a way to expand people's views. So like what I did with the Eminem Obama one is I talked about what it matters in the political context. So like Eminem's role in cancel culture and speaking out against Donald Trump's hatred of free speech and the First Amendment. And Eminem always stood up for the First Amendment and all that stuff. Then at the end of the video, I tied it back to a political topic. As long as the drama can borderline back and tie it back into a political issue, that's awesome. But pure drama, probably not. So like pure drama, I would have 2 sections of content recommendation on my Discord. One would be recommendations for, here, make a 5 or 10 minute video about this like usual. Here's like a news segment. Maybe my favorite videos like the Kyle Kalinske reactions. They do very well. That kind of video. But for drama, I could do on stream and then just leave the stream VOD up as the video. And then if I have people coming to my channel for actual news and more 10 to 20 minute videos, then they can just come and see that. They don't need to see the streams about drama. So I can still do like drama topics, but it'll be restricted to the stream VOD. And that wouldn't be like an actual video, if that makes sense.
Personality perspective, from an intellect perspective, from an ideological perspective. She helped create the Green New Deal concept, the need to create jobs.
Yeah, and another thing is, it's like, what are people gonna be Googling? This is one big part about search engine optimization. And maybe I'll just post this video to my channel just for funsies. It'll be like 3 hours long. But search engine optimization, you have to think on election day, leading up to election day, what are people going to be Googling? What are people going to be looking up on YouTube? And how can I optimize my videos to be the videos people go to? So there's some very strong topic videos I think I can hit on. Talk about things at stake in this election that are not Israel-Palestine. I think that'll be included in my progressives not voting Harris video as well. Trans rights, women's reproductive rights, immigration, stuff like that. I really like the framing of talking about immigration in the sense of stop thinking these are violent people and criminals or whatever. Many people have this impression, but the truth is these are your neighbors. The big rhetorical point is, I love explaining this to people because they don't know. Clickbait for when people do see it. Yeah, that's true. But my audience is looking for like Kyle Kalinske reaction, so I might have to adjust my entire tone. But like I said, I could segment it from stream content to video content. But the whole thing about immigrants, like why are they leaving a country that has no laws if they want to come do crime? It makes no sense. at all. If they're really these bloodthirsty criminals that want to run gang organizations, they're not going to come to the U.S. Like they're not going to come here. There's no reason to come to the U.S. so they can go to jail or be deported and be separated from their families. That kind of stuff. Also, I want to talk about religion too, because I don't know where I stand with religion exactly. I've been to so many different denominations of Christianity. I've been to a couple different religious areas. And the conversation in religion and how that leads into the cult thinking of Donald Trump, I feel like there's some things to go over there with even biblical text, just because I know that matters to so many people, with descriptions of humility and helping others and things that Jesus Christ as a philosopher would have talked about. I feel like that'd be an interesting video topic, just how the complete moral dilemma and how many morals Christians were able to drop for Donald Trump. And also, things like abortion are not explicit in the Bible at all, but things like not idolizing man above God or close to God, and things like descending from golden escalators is very clearly stated in the Bible as bad things, and gluttony and adultery and all that kind of stuff. But abortion is the hanging point for many people. So that's really interesting. How many cats did they eat? Honestly, yeah. I think about making live videos too. I found evidence of the cats. I found
transform our energy system away from
Do not watch this video. This video is dangerous.
Workers' rights. So
Truthseeker.net.
What do you think is the most powerful, enduring impact you've had on American politics? Looking back, you've been in it for quite a bit.
Well, I don't know that I can give you a singular answer. I was mayor of the city and proud of what we accomplished here. Proud of my accomplishments as a U.S. Senator. When COVID was devastating this country and we had a massive economic downturn, as chairman of the Budget Committee, I helped write the American Rescue Plan, which put a lot of money into people's pockets. We cut childhood poverty by 40% by providing a child tax credit. We kept hospitals going. We kept colleges going. Kept people from getting evicted, helped get public health out there, people getting the vaccines. I'm proud of that. But at the end of the day, I think what I have shown is that the ideas, this gets back to the early part of this conversation, the ideas that I am talking about are ideas that are widely supported. So when, Donald Trump says, oh, Bernie Sanders is a far left, it's like I'm some kind of extremist coming up with ideas that nobody supports. Everything that I talk about, raising the minimum wage, health care for all, a tax system which demands the billionaires pay their fair share.
Ooh, I got a double ad today. I got one of those ads that plays both sides from Elon Musk's PAC. It said that Kamala was more radical than Bernie Sanders and Kamala was a communist. And then I saw an ad right after that said Kamala is no Bernie Sanders. Kamala would never be as progressive as Bernie Sanders, because one ad was trying to scare right-wingers and one was trying to scare progressives. But I saw both because I am every political ideology, of course. Thank you, Elon.
But people didn't know. You got to run for president and have 20,000 people come out to your rallies and win 23 states. They say, well, maybe those ideas are not so crazy after all. And we got to entertain them. The establishment doesn't like that.
We don't think Trump's God. He's Jesus. Yeah.
This is how they succeed.
It's not God. Come on, bro.
The world is the way it is.
Jesus is not God. Jesus is the Trinity.
We got the power. And don't think of anything else. This is the way it is. You have no power. Give up. That they don't say it quite that way, but that's really
the wrong stream.
And what we showed is, guess what? Running
thank you,
an outsider
Careful
campaign.
What you wish for.
We took on the Democratic establishment, came close to winning it, and we did win 23 states. And the ideas that we're talking about are the ideas that working class people, young people believe in.
Yeah, you showed that it's possible to win. And that's an idea that will resonate for decades.
And out of that came dozens of candidates now in the House of Representatives, people on city council, people on state legislature who did win.
So we mentioned about the worry of getting sick, the worry of life that many people in the working class are suffering from. But there's also the worry that we all experience of the finiteness of life. Do you ponder your own mortality?
Are you afraid
well, when you're 83, it does come across.
All right.
Yeah, of course I do. And
are you afraid of it?
No, I'm not afraid of death. What I am afraid of, I think, is infirmity. I have been, knock on wood, this is wood, I think, reasonably healthy with conception. I had a heart attack 5 years ago. And what blew me away was that my body
what drives the labor market would be interesting.
That was stunning to me. That, suddenly I was in a hospital bed. I have a great deal of compassion for people as we speak who are in nursing homes, having a hard time
thank you.
walking.
I appreciate that.
Maybe your mental agility is slipping a little bit. That's tough. That's what worries me. We are all going to die, and that's that. So I'm not afraid of that. But that aspect of getting older, and that does concern me.
That said, your mind is as sharp as any politician.
A heart attack 5 years ago.
Oh, I totally was not listening to this. Wait a second.
So we mentioned about the worry of getting sick, the worry of life that many people in the working class are suffering from.
That is
But
one of them.
there's also the
Kamala listens
worry
to her Jewish husband.
that we all
Yeah, yeah.
experience of the finiteness of life. Do you ponder your own mortality? Are you afraid of
Well,
it?
when
And
you're
you know
80
what's funny about that one, Jay? That's a double-edged sword too, because not only is that getting voters to say like, "Oh, Kamala's like supporting the Jewish husband," but many of these voters who are in like Michigan, who are anti-Kamala, are also very socially regressive. They hate the LGBT community. They're very socially conservative. So when they see that, they also are believing it because they see Kamala, a woman, and they don't believe women should be leaders. So they're like, yeah, the man is controlling everything. So it's double right there. It's really, really cool.
83, it does come across.
All right.
Yeah, of course I do. And
Are you afraid of it?
no, I'm not afraid of that.
83.
What I am afraid of, I think, is infirmity. I have been, knock on wood, this is wood, I think, reasonably healthy with an exception. I had a heart attack 5 years ago. And what blew me away was that my body failed me for the very first time in my life. That was stunning to me, that, suddenly I was in a hospital bed. I have a great deal of compassion for people as we speak who are in nursing homes, having a hard time walking. Maybe your mental agility is slipping a little bit. That's tough. That's what worries me.
He's doing so good for 83, man. He's doing so good. It really is true. I've had, growing up in the middle of nowhere, like a coal town, dude, you see so many like 65-year-olds in walkers, like using walkers and in nursing homes, barely surviving. And you see Bernie here at 83 doing great. And that correlates with wealth, and also if you're breathing in pollutants a lot, if lead is in the water where you grow up, all that kind of stuff, access to healthcare. But Bernie's doing fantastic health-wise. So is Biden, honestly. Like they're like, Biden can still run and ride a bike. Bernie can still shoot hoops. Like, it's just how it is, man. They're just doing good. If I'm doing as good as Bernie is when I'm that age, that's a good life right there.
We are all going to die, and that's that. So I'm not afraid of that. But that aspect of getting older, and that does concern me.
That said, your mind is as sharp as any politician that I've ever heard, and also just off mic, I should say, that just the warmth that you radiate, and I deeply, deeply appreciate that,
Well,
just as a
thank
human being. So you still got it after all that, after all those speeches, after all those houses, after all of it. There's still the humility. And just the sharpness, the wit is all there. So Bernie, like I said, I wish you would have ran this year, but I also wish that there's future candidates.
Yeah, and there will be, Lex. I absolutely do.
Yeah, I want my marbles
you asked
too.
about my legacy, and the idea that there are wonderful, really, really wonderful people who are now
My whole family was
got involved in the political process, of fighting for
addicts
justice.
and
That's a
stuff,
great
so I
legacy.
don't do drugs or
What gives
drink
you
or
hope
anything.
about the future of this country, about the future?
And I always said, once my body fails me, then I'm going to do all the drugs. Like, I'm going to wait to do the drugs until which I think that's how it should be, in my opinion. Like, when you're young and you're able to do things, you probably should be traveling or, like, doing some things that you can do. I'll wait to do really hardcore drugs until I'm, like, in a wheelchair or something, if I make it that long. Yeah, I'm in between not caring and also caring, because I care about things I love and all that stuff. But I also know once you die, you're just, like, you're off, so like you don't feel pain or anything anymore. So I feel like the key is striking that balance and just having a good life. I want to be physically able to move, at least. I don't want to have someone wipe my butt for me or anything.
Political process that are fighting for justice. That's a great legacy.
What gives you hope about the future of this country, about the future of the world?
Sometimes one can become very cynical. You look at the terrible wars that are going on right now. You look at the divisiveness in this country.
Will
the
young people let
ugliness, the
democracy
poverty.
die? That's a good one.
You look at climate change.
Do presidents control the
You get
economy?
depressed from all that.
Ooh, those
But
are
I
some
am
really good
lucky
ones.
in this sense. And then I've had the opportunity. People often ask, what inspires you? How do you keep going? And I remember, actually, it was in California where it really crystallized.
people
There was a
yoga.
rally in the agricultural area of California. And we did a rally. It was sunset. Thousands of people were out. And you looked around the crowd, and there were young people, black and white and Latino and Asian American, huge cross-section. They're older people. And they all wanted to make America a very much better country. And it really moved me. I mean, I see that time and time. I've just been on the campaign trail. And you see great people, really beautiful people who not interested in becoming billionaires. They want to improve life for other people in this.
I do love people like that, man. I always say, if you want to meet some great people, wake up early, go to a walk in nature trail or something. Always good people out there. Yeah, my mind's number one too, but I've seen family members And this is why I assisted suicide, or at least early termination of one's life when they're in critical or hospice care, is a big deal to me, being legal. I hate the religious people who say we need to have a natural death. I had family members whose families were, whose bodies were completely giving up on them, and they were perfectly mentally there. But because of the state laws, they had to go until their heart stopped, and they literally shrunk to nothing but bones for weeks. And they were screaming in pain, agonizing pain for weeks before their heart finally stopped. And I'm like, the whole time, I'm like, please just just kill him. Like, just fucking kill him. Like, that's all yeah. That was pretty traumatic. So that's one of my biggest fears is torture. Torture is a big fear. Drowning is a big fear. I'd rather just die than experience that kind of pain. You know what I mean? Like, at that point, if everyone that I love right now died, I'd kill myself. Like, I'd rather be gone than experience that much pain. I've been through a lot of trauma in my life, which I will soak for politics someday. If I run for anything, I will use my trauma to my advantage, and I deserve to. I said the F word. I'm not supposed to say that. I'm not supposed to say the F word on stream. No. Now I'm gonna get banned from living
in this country. So, I am grateful that it sounds like a platitude, it's what every politician says, oh, blah, 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 blah. But when you go out around the country, you go to Native American reservations and you go to factories and everything, and you see so many wonderful people. I have been able to see things that many others have not. I've been to every state in the country. And that inspires me.
I share their optimism.
If I ever get in trouble for saying a slur, you have the trauma shield. Yeah. Oh, those are terrible too. My friend's grandmother, she's basically gone already, but her body's healthy. So, she can't remember anything at all. Every day is Groundhog Day, and there's barely any mental capacity there. That's another situation in which, when someone has dementia or Alzheimer's or something, you see them die. They're dead, and you mourn them before they're actually gone. And it's really sad. That's scary too. Any prolonged experience of losing control is really what's bad. Any prolonged experience. It runs in my family. But if I have a happy, healthy life until the age of 55, I think that's a success for me. If I die after that, especially if I have kids or whatever, then and the world's still decent, then I'll care about that. But a nice, healthy life till 55 seems like a good goal, at least. And money.
Bernie,
of
I've
course.
been a fan for a long time.
Medicare is not covering out home care yet.
Today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for what you're doing. Let me just say a word about what you're doing.
Okay,
to return the compliments here. I think there is a growing dissatisfaction with corporate media, and not because it's fake news or the reporting.
Yeah, and Lex is also both siding fascism and liberalism. So
Is lie all the time. That's nonsense. They don't.
And he's Elon Musk.
But I think people want to hear folks really talk about in a calm manner about some of the very important issues which are not discussed in corporate media. And I think that's what you and some others are doing. So I thank you very much. It's a very important service to the country.
And thank you from a mayor perspective for creating a wonderful plan. And I look forward to looking at the fall leaves, walking around tonight.
I didn't quite create the leaves.
Yeah.
I did create some other things.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bernie.
Thank you, Lex.
Oh, I have very low expectations, but I also view life as in living different lifetimes. So I'm getting off after this, so thank you for hanging out. It was really awesome. Thank you, Egghead, for the amazing support. Okay, really flipped my night around. But when I look at myself from the ages of 0 to 4, I was not really alive. I don't count that as being alive, personally. 4 to 8, that's another period of my life where I'm like, okay, you're going from kindergarten to first grade, second grade. Then 8 to 12, you're going from being a kid to being a preteen. 13 to 16, you're going from being a preteen to being a 16-year-old getting your driver's license. 16 to 20, you're going from being in middle of high school to middle of college. And even right now, 20 to where I am now at 24, I would say that each of these lifetimes have been different for me. Different people, even the same people are different. Myself, I'm different. I have not been the same person through any of these phases, and I don't think I'm going to be. I don't think I'm going to be the same person in general through the next 50 phases. So I think we should appreciate every week we get, every day we get, every few years we get. We get to live multiple lifetimes in one lifetime. And I think appreciating it in that sense is really a big deal. Because it does feel like we live forever almost if we appreciate it that way. And I don't want to actually live forever because that'd be terrible too. But yeah, thank you for dopamine. Oh, I love dopamine. All right, you get programming. Thank you for all the stuff, Allie. And everyone, thank you for the motivation. I'm gonna work on the Discord. I do have some good sob stories. I have a good background for this kind of stuff. I just don't know how to intertwine it. I'll be busy from the election, from actual work, so I'll try to get on here as much as possible. I'll be traveling for work and all that kind of stuff. I do regret that I was not making videos around like the Trump assassination attempt, the first one, because that would have done numbers. That would have done some numbers for the channel, and I missed out on it. But anyways, have a good night. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you in Discord. I check Discord a decent amount, so if anyone's having conversations in there, feel free to tag me. Or also you could DM me on Discord or whatever. I say Jolah. It's a nickname, but you could just say Jolah. It's not like my real name's a mystery, but I don't care. Jolah. That's why I say it's the Jolatariat. Like the proletariat, the Jolatariat, you know what I mean, for the support tiers. Yeah, Jolatariat. Alright, have a good night. Heart's Egghead. King Egghead.